Trisha Green Brown was shot in the basement of Henry Ford Hospital about 10 this morning.
And minutes after that shooting, police identified her ex-husband, Mario Green, as the suspect in that case. Security cameras caught him leaving the hospital just minutes after that shooting.
She loved God. She focused on getting money and taking care of her family. Lord Jesus Christ, she was amazing. She was magnificent. She was more than a friend. She was a mother. She was a wife. She did her job. I cannot believe this. Okay, I cannot believe this.
3 words. Just 3 words stamped on a piece of paper that should have saved a woman's life. Instead, they became her death sentence. Order not served. August 22nd, 2025, 9:45 in the morning. Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. While doctors upstairs were saving lives, something horrific was about to happen in the basement. But this story doesn't start with gunshots. It starts with a woman's own words, written just weeks before she died. "I am asking for help before this goes too far and things are too late." Latricia Green Brown had no idea how prophetic those words would be. See, Latricia did everything right. She filed the reports, she went to court, she begged for protection. The system even gave her that protection, a personal protection order signed by a judge. But here's the thing that'll make your blood boil. Nobody told her ex-husband about it, so on that Thursday morning when Mario Green walked through those hospital doors with a gun in his hand, he had no clue there was supposed to be a legal barrier keeping him away from his ex-wife. No clue that a judge had already decided he was dangerous. No clue that Latricia had been living in terror, sleeping in her car in the hospital parking lot because she was too scared to go home. What happened next in that basement would shock a city, expose a broken system, and prove that sometimes the very people meant to protect you are the ones who fail you when it matters most. Welcome back to our channel, where we expose the stories that'll keep you up at night. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and share this video, because today's story will shake you to your core. But before we get to those gunshots that ended everything, you need to know about the woman who spent her final months writing her own obituary in court documents, begging anyone who would listen to save her life. This is the story of a 40-year-old healthcare worker who trusted the system to save her. A woman who followed every rule, filed every form, and made every plea for help. A woman whose ex-husband had a history of violence that should have been a massive red flag to everyone involved. This is the story of how bureaucracy killed Latricia Green Brown. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever felt like the system failed you? Because what happened to Latricia will make you question everything you thought you knew about protection orders. Latricia Green Brown wasn't supposed to die at 40. She was supposed to be starting over. For 20 years, she walked the halls of Henry Ford Hospital as part of the housekeeping staff. Her colleagues knew her as Trish, the quiet one who kept to herself but always had your back when you needed it. She was the type of person who'd listen to your problems while dealing with her own private hell. Her friend Shaniqua Gibson remembers the woman everyone else saw. Kind, generous, always putting others first. But Gibson also saw the bruises Latricia tried to hide. The days she'd call off work because she couldn't face her coworkers with fresh marks on her body. March 2025 was supposed to be Latricia's turning point. Her 40th birthday. She'd made a decision that would change everything. She was finally leaving Mario Green for good. They'd been together for 15 years, married for 6 of those before divorcing in 2018. But here's the twisted part. Mario never let her actually leave. Even after the divorce papers were signed, he controlled her life, made her live with him, made her believe she had no choice. But on her 40th birthday, after another violent argument, Mario kicked her out of the house. Instead of begging to come back, like she had so many times before, Latricia did something different. She stayed gone. It was big for her, Gibson would later tell reporters. And it was. For the first time in years, Latricia was free. Except she wasn't really free at all. With nowhere to go, Latricia lived out of her car, often sleeping in the Henry Ford Hospital parking lot where she worked. Think about that for a second. A woman so terrified of her ex-husband that she chose to sleep in a hospital parking lot rather than risk him finding her at home. In July, things started looking up. Latricia finally got her own apartment, though she had to rent it in Gibson's name for safety. She cooked her first meal in her new place. Her couch was being delivered. She was building a life, but she never got comfortable. Gibson said Latricia felt paranoid, constantly looking over her shoulder. The woman who should have been celebrating her newfound independence was instead living in constant fear. Latricia had dreams beyond just surviving. She'd been accepted into a radiology program at Oakland Community College and had just started her first semester. She wanted to travel, to see places beyond Detroit. Her biggest goal, according to Gibson, was simple but heartbreaking: to be emotionally safe and secure. That's all she wanted. Not wealth, not fame, just the basic human right to feel safe in her own life. Latricia came from a close-knit, church-going family. She was her late grandmother's favorite, the family's baby, who everyone adored. She was naturally nurturing, always taking care of her little brother and her cousin's kids. Her cousin Dia Brown would later say she was fun-loving and silly. She smiled all the time, but behind that smile was a woman trapped in a nightmare that was about to get much worse. Freedom was an illusion for Latricia Green Brown. The moment she walked away from Mario Green in March 2025, he launched a campaign of terror that would last until the day he killed her. Mario's harassment wasn't random. It was calculated, relentless, and escalating. He called her workplace constantly, not just to torment Latricia, but to threaten her colleagues. Hospital staff started recognizing his voice. They knew when he called, trouble was coming. But the phone calls were just the beginning. Mario would show up at Henry Ford Hospital without warning, trying to force his way into Latricia's office. Security knew his face. They had his picture posted in their offices, yet somehow he kept getting through. Then came the property destruction. Mario broke into Latricia's car multiple times, stealing her belongings and cutting up her clothes. This wasn't just vandalism. This was psychological warfare. He was sending a message: I can get to you anywhere, anytime. The stalking got worse. Mario would follow Latricia home from work, sometimes for miles. On July 19th, just weeks before her murder, he followed her from Oak Park all the way back to Detroit, but this time he didn't just follow. He tried to ram her car, attempting to force her off the road. Latricia was terrified. She drove straight to a Detroit police station to file a report. But here's where the system started failing her. The officers told her she needed to go back to Oak Park to make the report there. In text messages to Gibson that same day, Latricia wrote that going to the police was pointless and that she was tired of crying. The Detroit Police Department later claimed they had no record of her being there that day. By June 2025, Latricia knew she needed legal protection. She filed her first request for a personal protection order on June 13th. In her application, she detailed Mario's behavior with chilling precision. He continued to call my job and threatened to meet employees outside, and showed up to my job and tried to enter my office without my approval to get to me. The judge denied it. Not enough evidence, they said. Not enough proof that this man who was stalking, threatening, and harassing her was actually dangerous. Latricia was devastated, but not defeated. She went back to court on July 20th with more evidence, more documentation, more proof of Mario's escalating violence. This time, her petition was heartbreaking in its desperation. I have tried being cordial because I feel that the system has now let me down each time that I have tried to make reports on this man. But then she revealed something that made her fear even more profound. My father was murdered, and now, with this situation, I am now in mental distress and scared, not knowing what to do. Latricia had already lost her father to violence. Now she was watching the same pattern play out in her own life, and nobody seemed to care. She continued, I have to constantly look over my shoulder to make sure this man is not following me to hurt me like he has done in the past with physical abuse. The phrase "like he has done in the past" tells you everything. This wasn't Mario's first time being violent with Latricia. The physical abuse had been going on for years. Her final plea was prophetic. I am asking for help before this goes too far and things are too late. This time, Judge Carla Testani listened. On July 21, 2025, she granted Latricia's request for a personal protection order. Finally, Latricia had the legal protection she desperately needed, or so she thought. Pause the video right here. How many red flags do you count? Comment below because this gets so much worse. What Latricia didn't know, what nobody told her, was that having a protection order granted and having it enforced are two completely different things. And that difference was about to cost her everything. Here's where this story takes a turn that'll make you lose faith in the entire system. Latricia had her protection order. Judge Testani had signed it. The court had officially recognized that Mario Green was a threat. But there was one tiny detail that nobody bothered to explain to Latricia, a detail that would get her killed. The order was never served to Mario Green. Let that sink in. Mario had no idea a judge had ruled against him, no idea there were legal consequences for continuing his harassment, no idea that Latricia had successfully proven he was dangerous. Why wasn't it served? Because in Michigan, the burden falls on the victim to make sure their own protection gets delivered. Latricia would have had to pay $26 plus mileage to the Wayne County Sheriff's Office to serve the order. And here's the kicker. The Sheriff's Office has no record that she ever requested service. Maybe she didn't know she had to. Maybe she couldn't afford it. Maybe she thought the court would handle it automatically. Whatever the reason, Mario Green walked around for weeks completely unaware that he was violating a court order just by existing near Latricia. But this wasn't Mario's first rodeo with restraining orders and violent behavior. In January 2001, he was charged with aggravated stalking and domestic violence against another woman. Even with a restraining order in place, he assaulted and repeatedly threatened her. He pleaded guilty to the stalking charge and got 5 years probation. In 2002, another woman named Katina McCleany got a protection order against Mario. She told reporters about an incident where he put a gun to my head and said if he couldn't have me, no one could. She remembered freezing, thinking about her son, wondering if she was about to die.
Followed me to a friend's house one day, and because it was a man, I guess that upset him, and that's what led to him chasing me down and making me get out of my car and putting a gun to my head because, as he said, if I wasn't going to be with him, I wouldn't be with anybody.
In 2012, Mario was convicted of arson and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. He served just over 3 years. In 2013, he faced charges for domestic violence and assault with a dangerous weapon against yet another woman. This time, a jury found him not guilty. The pattern was crystal clear. Mario Green was a serial abuser who escalated to deadly threats when women tried to leave him. The system knew this. The courts had seen this. Yet somehow, nobody connected these dots when Latricia came begging for help. Meanwhile, at Henry Ford Hospital, staff knew Mario was trouble. Security had his photo. They knew he was banned from the premises. Latricia had asked to have her office moved because he knew where to find her. She'd had multiple conferences with security about the threat he posed. But here's the fatal flaw in their security. The hospital basement where Latricia worked was considered public space. No security badge required. No metal detectors, no barriers between a known stalker and his target. Everyone knew Mario Green was dangerous. Everyone except the one person who needed to know it most, Mario himself. Thursday morning, August 22nd, 2025. Latricia woke up in her own apartment for what would be the last time. She had no idea that miles away, Mario Green was preparing to end her life. At 9:45 a.m., Mario walked through the doors of Henry Ford Hospital like he owned the place. Security cameras captured everything, but nobody stopped him. He bypassed the metal detectors. How? We still don't know. And headed straight for the basement. He knew exactly where he was going. After months of stalking Latricia, he knew her routine, her workspace, her schedule. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a calculated execution. Witnesses later told police that Mario claimed he was there to drop off some of her belongings. It was the perfect cover story. Who would question an ex-husband returning his former wife's things? But Latricia knew better. The moment she saw Mario in that basement, she knew this wasn't about belongings. She told him to leave. Her voice was firm, but you have to wonder, was she scared? Did she know what was coming? The argument that followed was brief but intense. Hospital staff in nearby areas could hear raised voices echoing through the basement corridors. Latricia was standing her ground, probably thinking that being at work, surrounded by colleagues, would keep her safe. She was wrong. In one swift motion, Mario pulled out a handgun. Multiple shots rang out in the basement of Henry Ford Hospital. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Latricia Green Brown, 40 years old, died instantly from close-range gunshot wounds. The hospital erupted into chaos. Code lockdown was announced over the intercom. Patients and staff were ordered to shelter in place. Doors were locked. Security swept the building floor by floor. Tashina Steffens was inside during the lockdown. She described the terror. When you're in a room and they tell you can't leave, and if somebody's shooting, you just don't know, and your life just starts flashing in front of your eyes. My children, my family, oh God, I need to make it home. But
It was the most horrible feeling because when you're in a room and they tell you can't leave, and if somebody's shooting, you just don't know. And your life just starts flashing, in front of your eyes. So
Mario was already gone. He fled the scene in a white 2011 Dodge Charger with license plate DXC7067, heading north on the Lodge Freeway. By the time police arrived, he had vanished into Detroit's maze of streets. The manhunt began immediately. Every available unit was deployed. Helicopters circled overhead. The entire city was on high alert for a man who had just executed his ex-wife in broad daylight. Hours passed. Then, around 2 p.m., police got their first break. The white Dodge Charger was found abandoned on Trojan and Lazar in Detroit. Mario had ditched the car and disappeared on foot. David Kinslow lived nearby where the car was discovered. He worked overnight shifts and woke up to what he called complete mayhem and chaos. Police were everywhere, collecting evidence, pulling security footage from his cameras, trying to figure out which direction Mario had gone. They're tracking him, Kinslow told reporters, watching the massive police response unfold in his neighborhood. But Mario Green had help. While police were searching for him, his friend Anthony Lee Lamont Barnett was actively helping him evade capture. Barnett, 54, would later be charged as an accomplice for helping Mario escape and lying to police about his whereabouts. The search continued through the night. Tips poured in from across the city. Detroit Police Chief Todd Bettison later praised the community response, saying residents provided numerous tips about the suspect's location. Finally, at 3:17 a.m. on August 23rd, nearly 18 hours after the murder, police found Mario Green on LeMay Street on Detroit's east side. He didn't resist arrest. After months of terrorizing Latricia, after years of abusing multiple women, after executing his ex-wife in cold blood, Mario Green surrendered without a fight. The coward who had spent months stalking and threatening a woman half his size went quietly when faced with armed police officers. Back at Henry Ford Hospital, Latricia's colleagues were trying to process what had happened. Devin Wilford, who worked with her, was devastated. She was magnificent. She was more than a friend. She was a mother. She was a wife. She did her job.
She loved God. She focused on getting money and taking care of her family. Lord Jesus Christ, she was amazing. She was magnificent. She was more than a friend. She was a mother.
Valencia Heron, another hospital employee, revealed something chilling. When they posted the picture of him on Facebook, We were all saying we've seen him before. They all knew Mario's face. They'd all seen him lurking around the hospital, harassing Latricia. Yet somehow, he'd still managed to walk in and kill her. I need you to share this video right now. Latricia's story needs to be heard. How many women are living this nightmare right now? The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office didn't mess around. When they charged Mario Green, they threw the book at him. First-degree premeditated murder, discharge of a firearm in a building causing death, aggravated stalking, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person, 4 counts of felony firearm. Each charge told part of the story. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment killing. It was premeditated murder. Mario had planned this execution, walked into a hospital with a gun, and carried it out in cold blood. His accomplice, Anthony Barnett, faced his own charges, accessory after the fact and lying to police. The judge set his bond at $100,000 cash, with a GPS tether and a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. Even Barnett's lawyers tried to get his bond reduced, but the court refused, citing flight risk and public safety concerns. But while the legal system finally swung into action, Latricia's family was left to pick up the pieces of a life that should never have been lost. Her cousin DeAntoine Jones was still in shock. When you see his picture, it's like, I know him. And to think that it happened at the place where she worked, she was such a sweet person, she didn't deserve what happened to her at all. That phrase, I know him, speaks volumes. Mario wasn't some stranger who snapped. He was a familiar face. Someone the family had seen around for years. Someone they probably never imagined would become a killer. Another cousin, Rodney Hickman, had a direct message for Mario before his arrest. We're just hoping you do the right thing, man. Turn yourself in.
Just hoping, you do the right thing. Turn yourself in, man. Turn yourself in.
Even in their grief, the family was hoping for some shred of humanity from the man who destroyed their lives. Dia Brown, Latricia's first cousin who had known her since birth, struggled to find words. She deserved to live. She deserved peace. Brown called Latricia the family's baby, their favorite little cousin who was fun, loving, and silly, and smiled all the time. But Brown also understood something dark about predators like Mario. Unfortunately, that's the type of person a monster goes after. The officials offered their standard responses. Detroit Police Chief Todd Bettison stated, "No person deserves what happened to Ms. Latricia Green, and my heart and prayers go out to her family." He praised his officers for working tirelessly to get this monster off the street. Prosecutor Kame Worthy tried to make sense of the senseless. Most people have had failed relationships of one kind or another. The result has never been violence. But unfortunately, deadly violence is the remedy for some individuals. Henry Ford Health released a carefully worded statement calling Latricia family and promising a thorough internal investigation. They emphasized that this was a targeted act of domestic violence and that they were scrutinizing our own security measures. But their words rang hollow to people like Shaniqua Gibson, who knew the truth about how the hospital had handled Mario's threats. Gibson revealed that Latricia had repeatedly asked hospital security to move her office because Mario knew where to find her. She'd had multiple conferences with security about the escalating danger. The hospital had Mario's photo, knew he was banned, yet he still managed to walk in and kill her. She was feeling the escalation, and she was so consistently scared, Gibson told reporters, expressing frustration over what she saw as the hospital's inadequate response. The most heartbreaking detail came from Hickman, who revealed that just days before her death, Mario had followed Latricia home from work and ran her off the road. She'd made another police report, but nothing came of it. "We're not sitting here going to point the finger," Hickman said, but at the same time she was a woman crying out for help. Crying out for help. That phrase captures everything wrong with this case. Latricia had done everything right, followed every procedure, filed every form, yet she died anyway, failed by every system meant to protect her. Here's the part that should terrify every woman watching this video. Latricia Green Brown did absolutely everything she was supposed to do, and she still died. Let's break down the systematic failures that killed her. Because this isn't just about one woman, this is about a broken system that's failing women across America right now. First, the protection order disaster. In Michigan, when a judge grants you a PPO, you have to pay to get it served, $26 plus mileage. That might not sound like much, but for a woman living out of her car, scraping together money for an apartment, it could be the difference between protection and death. Compare that to states like California, New York, and Florida, where law enforcement serves protection orders for free. In those states, Latricia would still be alive today. But even if the PPO had been served, there's another problem. Jenny Hooper from First Step, a Wayne County domestic violence organization, revealed a disturbing truth. There's usually little to no enforcement of PPOs by law enforcement. Think about that. Even when everything works perfectly, when the order is granted, served, and violated, police often don't act. The piece of paper that's supposed to protect you becomes meaningless. Then there's the workplace failure. Henry Ford Hospital knew Mario was dangerous. They had his photo. Security knew he was banned. Latricia had begged them to move her office because he knew where to find her. Yet the basement where she worked required no security badge, no metal detectors, no barriers between a known stalker and his target. The hospital treated domestic violence like a personal problem instead of a workplace safety issue. The police failures were just as devastating. When Latricia went to file a report after Mario tried to ram her car, officers told her to go to a different precinct. She texted Gibson that it was pointless and she was tired of crying. The Detroit Police Department later claimed they had no record of her visit. But here's the most chilling failure of all. Nobody connected Mario's criminal history to his current behavior. This man had been convicted of aggravated stalking in 2001. Another woman had gotten a PPO against him in 2002 after he put a gun to her head. He'd served time for arson. The pattern was crystal clear, documented in court records across decades. Yet when Latricia came forward, each agency treated her case in isolation. Nobody looked at the bigger picture. Nobody saw that Mario Green was a serial predator who escalated to murder when women tried to leave. Katina McClenny, the woman who survived Maria's gun threat 20 years earlier, said it best. "I cry for Latricia because this should have never happened to her." McClenny knew what Mario was capable of. The courts knew, the police knew, the hospital knew, everyone knew except the one person who could have made a difference, Mario himself, who never received that protection order. Right now across America, there are women living Latricia's nightmare, women whose protection orders sit unserved, women whose workplaces ignore the danger, women whose abusers have histories of violence that nobody bothers to connect. The question isn't whether this will happen again. The question is, will you recognize it when it's happening to someone you know? November 6, 2025. That's when Mario Green and Anthony Barnett will face their preliminary examination in court. Justice for Latricia is finally moving forward, but for her, it's already too late. Her friend Gibson said Latricia's biggest dream was simple, to be emotionally safe and secure. That's it. Not fame, not fortune, just the basic human right to live without fear. She never got that chance. But her death doesn't have to be meaningless. Right now, there are women in your city, maybe in your own family, who are living Latricia's story. They're filing police reports that go nowhere. They're getting protection orders that never get served. They're begging their employers to take threats seriously, only to be told it's a personal matter. Here's what needs to change, and here's how you can help make it happen. First, protection order reform. Michigan needs to join the states that serve PPOs for free. Contact your state representatives. Demand that victims shouldn't have to pay for their own protection. Latricia might be alive today if Michigan had this basic safeguard. Second, workplace safety protocols. Every employer needs policies for employees facing domestic violence. Security escorts, flexible schedules, office relocations, panic buttons, these aren't luxuries, they're necessities. Henry Ford Hospital is conducting their internal investigation, but how many other workplaces are ignoring the warning signs right now? Third, law enforcement training. Police need to understand that domestic violence cases don't exist in isolation. When someone like Mario Green has a history of stalking and violence, that information needs to be front and center in every new case. The dots were there, they just weren't connected. But the biggest change has to come from all of us. When someone tells you they're being stalked, believe them. When a friend shows you bruises, don't look away. When a coworker mentions their ex won't leave them alone, take it seriously. Latricia's cousin Dia Brown said something that should haunt us all. I just hate that he had her in such fear. A woman spent the last months of her life terrified, and everyone around her knew it. Gibson's final words about her friend were heartbreaking. She didn't deserve to live the last few months of her life in absolute fear. No woman does. Latricia Green Brown was failed by every system designed to protect her. She followed every rule, filed every form, made every plea for help. The system's failure cost her everything. Subscribe to our channel if you believe no woman should die begging for help. Share Latricia's story. Make sure her voice is heard. Because the next woman could be someone you love. Order not served. 3 words that killed her. Don't let it happen again.